Hello and welcome to Ask GCN-ything. You ask us anything and we will answer it. Like this one from Random Bike Trips, who has said, "Hey GCN, I ride my bike a lot, but I'm wondering if it's proper bike riding etiquette to not stop for coffee every time I go for a ride."
Oh, sorry about that.
All right, mate, why are you late?
I left late. I didn't want to forego my normal coffee stop, so sorry. What,
Well,
10 minutes late?
Yeah, well, there you go. There's your answer. Dan couldn't not stop for a coffee, even though he's now 10 minutes late.
No, I'm awake now.
Well, there's a good point. All right, so on to the next one. From Drew Ellison. He has got a 107-mile hilly sportive coming up in 3 weeks, but he's got a nasty cold. So he says, by the time I recover from that, how should I train for the last 2 weeks to get the biggest gains in time for my sportive?
Well, firstly, Drew, you have done the right thing by resting up through your illness, because one of the worst things, should I say, that you can do is to plough on through, potentially elongating your cold to last right up to the event itself. So if you have recovered from it with 2 weeks still remaining, then you've still got a little bit of time to play with. I would say about 8 or 9 days of training time where you can push yourself if you are feeling 100% healthy again. But just make sure that on those last 4 to 5 days, you do rest up enough so that on the day of the event, you are both fit and also fresh.
You are. Now, to make sure that you know that you are fully recovered, then click and you can watch a great video there where Matt tells you exactly how to find out.
The common mistake to make is to wait a couple of weeks and train anyway, regardless of how you feel. It's easy to worry about the miles that you're perhaps missing out on and how much riding your mates are doing, but don't. Play the long game, see a doctor, and get to the bottom of the problem.
Right, our next question comes in from Josh Butler, who says, #talkback, I'm 14. In my first 5 rides, I've got myself up to riding 60 miles at about 15 miles per hour. Do I try to improve either my average speed or the miles?
Well, firstly, Josh, I think you're doing really well. That sounds like a cracking performance. Then, in terms of your question, I'd say you probably should find out which one you enjoy more. Do you enjoy going for longer rides or do you enjoy riding faster? Now, training for one or the other doesn't necessarily mean that you won't improve at the other, but I still think you need to work out what it is you actually want to get out of cycling.
Yeah, Si's right. Some people do get a lot out of just doing long rides and riding farther. However, if you are purely performance oriented, I would suggest trying to increase your average speed first. I don't know what Si thinks about this, but I've always personally found that trying to get the extra power over shorter durations is quite hard to find. But once you've got there, adding some endurance on with longer rides is quite easy.
Yeah, very true. All right, next up, we've got a tweet from Bas van Dongen, who has said, is his sore ass the result of a bad saddle, old cycling shorts, body position, or anything else? Well, we have a video about how to avoid getting a sore ass. If you click just up there, then you get straight through to it. That should answer your question, Bas. Now, to combat chafage, the first thing to do is to buy a pair of cycling shorts that have got a pad in them. Now, you can spend loads of money and get really, really expensive shorts with technology oozing out of them, and they will be slightly more comfortable, but the main thing to look at is how well they fit you. Now, first of all, they need to be tight enough on your legs so that they don't ride up. If they're not, and they do end up riding up, then you end up with bunched up fabric, which is really, really bad at causing chafage.
It's time for the quick fire round, and we are going to start with Peter Colling, who says, I've been riding a lot, around 2,000 Ks per month, but I need to scale it back to spend more time with my family and working. Any tips for psychologically dealing with the inevitable loss of fitness?
Well, we are probably exceedingly well qualified to comment on how to deal with a dropping loss of fitness.
Me, way more than you.
Well, anyway, firstly, I'd say try not to worry about it because it's just one of those things. But secondly, you don't actually need to get less fit just because you do less hours on the bike. So maybe think instead about using your time more effectively. So if you've only got an hour or even 45 minutes to go and train, then just do loads of really high intensity intervals. And actually, you'll probably end up keeping an awful lot of your fitness.
Yeah, I think we've spoken about it before, haven't we? But we've both seen riders who've gone from working full-time and racing around that job to trying to make it as a pro and then going full-time as a cyclist and not really got any better because they're not doing the same quality. So it can work for you, as Si says. If you do find that your form lessens, like it has done for me, then what you need to do is just start your expectations all over again. Reset all the values that you're used to seeing when you're out on your rides and start from there and then try and improve from there with the time that you've got.
Yeah, that is a very good good tip. All right, next up, we have got Tommaso Torkins, who said, do the sessions made to climb faster, are they also efficient for time trialing? Well, yeah, they are in one respect, in that you're working your cardiovascular system, but actually the way you pedal on climbs is very different from when you're riding on the flat on time trials. So you can do the same sessions, but just make sure you do them on flat roads, or at least rolling roads.
Yeah, just to make it very specific. At the end of the day, as Si said, you are still working that system, which is the amount of power you can do for a specific duration, but the way the power goes through the pedals does make quite a big difference.
It does. All right, next up, we've got this. Todd Lacey, what's the best way to clamp a carbon fibre frame in a repair stand? This is a really, really important thing to get right. You must always clamp your carbon frame by the seat post.
So not on the frame at all?
Not on the frame at all, because carbon does not like being clamped, except for seat posts, because they are designed to be clamped. So remember that one. It's really, really important.
Farouk Chachali says, why are most Grand Tour stages 200 Ks plus? Nothing happens until the end anyway. Why don't they make them around stage like stages that we had at the Giro this year? Plenty of fireworks and attacks, much more fun to watch, everyone wins. What am I missing? Well, it's not just the Giro that are experimenting with shorter stages. That in fact really came from the Vuelta first, and they got plenty of fireworks too. The Tour de France has also seen some shorter stages over the last few years as well. I'm thinking about a couple of years ago when Alberto Contador attacked early on the Alpe d'Huez stage and put Thomas Voeckler into a lot of trouble. That saw a lot of fireworks as well. So all three of the Grand Tours have got plenty of shorter stages. Sometimes they need longer stages just to get riders from A to B without spending too much time on the buses between them, because you have got to get the right way around a whole country.
Yeah, but I suppose in essence, maybe they will start doing shorter and shorter stages.
Yeah. I don't think that would be a bad thing at all.
But then you can't neglect long stages, can you? There's nothing like a bit of residual fatigue to get a truly worthy winner at the end of a 3-week stage race.
Yeah, just like with the Criterium de Dauphiné prologue being uphill, there's a place for everything, I think, in moderation.
Now this is a really interesting question, Dan, from Max Z, who was asked, how much faster would Chris Froome get up Mont Ventoux on a weightless bike rather than his current 6.8 kilos? So we did a little bit of research and we used a very good website called Bike Calculator, and we reckon he would save about 3 minutes, which is pretty quick given that it estimated he'd do a 55-minute time up Mont Ventoux, and then that would drop down to 52 minutes.
Yeah, that does put into context the importance of weight, not just on the bike, but of course on your body. We see these top-end athletes trying to lose that last kilo, but actually, as you can see, it can make a significant difference, which you can't really feel when you're actually riding, because you're just going as hard as you can.
Yeah.
Now, don't forget that you can ask your questions ready for next week's show on most forms of social media using #TalkBack, or as Alex Knight did, put it underneath the video of this week's and ask a question. He did that last week and he says, can you calculate FTP on a turbo trainer?
Well, yeah, you can, very easily. It's a great way of calculating your FTP. Dan has pointed out to me that actually it sometimes can give you a slightly lower reading than if you were doing it outside, but for 3 ways of doing it, why don't you watch that video that's just going on behind us?
Oh, I've got a hair out of place. Yeah, there are 3 main tests which are going to give you a broad picture of your cycling ability. A sprint test, a maximal aerobic test, and a threshold test. Now these 3 things are going to tell you a lot about your overall cycling performance out on the open road, and improving any one of them will make you a better rider. Well, that's it for this week. Don't forget to put your questions in the comment section down below. We'll be checking them before we start next week's show.
Absolutely. You can ask us pretty much anything. Now, going back to that question earlier on about bike weight, we actually did some science about this very subject. So if you click just up there, then you get through to a video where Matt and I tried out different bike weights up Sestriere in the Italian Alps.
We also talked a bit about ass soreness. Now, if you've got problems with numbness in that particular area, we also did a video on that, which is just down there.
Yeah, make sure you subscribe to GCN though before leaving this video. To do that, you can just click on the globe.